Welcome to the Stuff You Should Think About podcast. We'll answer everyday questions about everyday phenomena and objects in bite sized episodes. Hey, I'm G. Hope your day is going kind of the way you wanted it to go. So, today I want to talk about ego anxiety because a lot of people are feeling it and also kind of wondering, is this like a real thing or am I just broken? So, ego anxiety is basically this ongoing worry, fear, or heaviness about climate change and the future. It can be about fires, floods, heat species dying out, or honestly, just that low key dread when you scroll climate news. And it's important to say this up front. It's not a formal mental disorder in the DSM, the big manual therapists use to diagnose stuff. It's more like a description of a very understandable emotional response to a very real threat. That rational part matters. If you're feeling uneasy about the planet, that doesn't automatically mean something's wrong with you. It might mean you're paying attention. Eco anxiety can sit on top of other things, though, and that's where it gets confusing. So let's compare it a bit to generalized anxiety and depression. Generalized anxiety is more like your mind latches on to all kinds of stuff: grades, money, your roommate, your health, your mom's health, and it keeps spinning. With ego anxiety, the worry is more focused: climate, environment, future generations. But the overlap is real. You can get the same racing thoughts, trouble sleeping, not being able to concentrate in class because you're half listening to the professor and half thinking, why am I doing this if the world is on fire? Depression, on the other hand, leans more into numbness, low energy, feeling hopeless, like nothing matters. Ego anxiety can slide in that direction, especially if your climate worry starts to sound like nothing I do makes a difference. We're doomed. Then the fear mixes with that heavy, stuck feeling. Some people swing between both panicky one day, check out the next. Emotional psychology has this useful idea called cognitive appraisal. That's just a fancy way of saying your brain is constantly asking two questions about any situation. One, how bad is this? How big is the threat? And two, can anything be done? Do I have any control or do we have any control? With climate change, that first question often comes back like, really bad. You see, graphs, disasters, deadlines. So the threat side is high. The second question, can anything be done, is where ego anxiety lives. If your answer is yeah, there are actions, there are solutions, I'm not alone, then the anxiety can push you toward doing stuff. If your answer is nope, it's too big, nobody in charge cares, then the same anxiety can feel crushing. So, ego anxiety isn't just random nerves, it's your brain doing that appraisal thing and kind of freaking out because the threat feels huge and the control feels tiny. And once you see it that way, it's a little easier to stop asking, why am I like this? And start asking, okay, how am I seeing this? And can I shift that a little? All right, let's go a little bit inside the brain and the body for a second. Don't worry, I'm not going to throw a whole textbook at you, just enough so it makes sense. So, you got this part of your brain called the amygdala. Quick version: It's one of your threat detectors. It loves to light up when something feels dangerous. And the wild thing is, it doesn't really care if the danger is a tiger in front of you or a headline about a wildfire halfway across the world. When you scroll climate news, or you're sitting in class and your professor shows a slide of, like, projected sea level rise, you're thinking, brain goes, that's concerning. But your amygdala is like, danger, do something. That kicks off your stress response, stress hormones, like adrenaline and cortisol. Heart rate might pick up a little, your muscles tense, your body gets ready to fight, run, or just kind of freeze. The problem is, you can't punch global warming. You can't run away from the whole atmosphere. So that energy has nowhere obvious to go, and it just sits in your system. For a lot of students, that shows up as rumination to your brain. And it's replaying the same climate worries like a broken tape deck. What if I don't get to have kids? What if my hometown floods? What's the point of this degree? You try to focus on an assignment, and your thoughts just loop back to the same what ifs. Then there's guilt. Maybe you're thinking about your carbon footprint every time you buy food or a book on the trip home. Or anger big, one at governments, companies, school leadership. That sense of, why are people with power not acting like this, is an emergency. That's where a lot of eco-anxiety lives right now. And that gap between what you know and what you see being done. Physically, it's not just in your head. People report headaches, jaw tension from clenching, tight shoulders, upset stomach, feeling wired at night, even when they're exhausted. Sleep takes a hit lying in bed, scrolling doomy climate posts, telling yourself you'll stop, then not stopping. I've done that with other kinds of news, and it just fries your nervous system. And then there's this deeper layer, institutional betrayal. They're feeling that the systems that were supposed to protect you, meaning governments, big organizations, sometimes even your university, knew about the problem and didn't act fast enough. Or they make big shiny climate promises and then quietly keep funding fossil fuels. That's where greenwashing comes in, right? The ads say eco-friendly and the fine print says, not really. When your brain takes that in, the appraisal shifts again. It's not just the planet's in trouble. And the people in charge might not be trustworthy. That combo can really spike eco-anxiety. For some people, it turns into hopelessness if they're not doing enough. What chance do we have? For others, it's more like emotional numbness. You stop clicking articles. You joke about the end of the world, but inside you feel kind of checked out. None of that means you're broken. It actually means your threat system is reacting to a situation that is honestly threatening. The goal isn't to shut that system off, it's to help it work with you instead of just frying your circuits 24/7. So now that we've kind of walked through what eco-anxiety is and what it does in your body, the next question is, when is it actually useful and when does it just wreck your day? You can think of constructive eco-anxiety as that uncomfortable feeling that nudges you toward something that matters. It might push you to learn more, to vote, to join a campus group, to choose a project in your major that connects to climate solutions. You still feel worried, but there's this thread of, okay, I can do it at least one small thing. That little bit of agency is huge. Paralyzing. Eco anxiety, on the other hand, feels more like a shutdown. Your thoughts might sound like it's too late, nothing matters. Everyone else is lying to themselves. You might doom scroll, then feel too drained to go to class or hang out. Maybe you swing between bursts of climate activism and then crashing hard because you're burnt out and disappointed. Psychology wise, there are a few strategies that seem to help move things back toward the constructive side. One is super simple, but not easy. Naming your climate emotions. Not just, I'm anxious, but I'm scared. I'm angry at older generations. I'm grieving places and animals we're losing. I'm guilty about how I live. When you name it, you're using your thinking brain to kind of sit next to the feeling instead of being inside it. Another piece is meaning focused coping. That's basically asking, given that I can't control everything, what kind of person do I want to be in this situation? Maybe it's about caring for your local community. Maybe it's pushing for policy. Maybe it's using your specific skills, engineering, art, teaching, organizing. The climate problem is huge, but your piece of it doesn't have to be. Community matters a lot here too. Eco anxiety gets way heavier when you're carrying it alone at 2 a.m. in your dorm. Talking with friends, joining clubs, going to events where people are actually doing something that can flip the appraisal from I'm one tiny person against the system to I'm one part of a group that's trying. It doesn't magically fix the climate, but it makes your nervous system feel less strained. And then there's the small, controllable actions. I don't mean if you just recycle, everything's fine, because we all know that's not how this works. But picking a few things you can realistically do, maybe how you commute, what you study, where you put your time, gives your body a place to send all that anxious energy. Think of it as turning stress into motion, not into self blame. If you're a college student juggling classes, jobs, family stuff, and then climate dread on top of it, it makes sense that your system feels overloaded. It's okay if your anxiety comes and goes, or if it shows up weird like irritability, or you just can't focus. You're not the only one in that boat, even if it feels that way walking across campus. If it starts getting to the point where you can't sleep, you're skipping a lot of classes, or you're having thoughts like, what's the point of being here at all? That's when it's really worth it. That's when you start reaching out. Most campuses have counseling centers, peer support groups, maybe even sustainability or climate grief circles. And then there are online therapists and hotlines if campus resources are slammed. You deserve support that takes your climate worries seriously, not just brush it off. All right, I'm going to wrap it up. Eco anxiety, as rough as it is is a sign that you care and that you're awake to what's happening. The work is learning how to let that care move you without letting it crush you. We'll keep talking about this in future episodes, different tools, different stories, so you don't have to figure it out alone. Thanks for hanging out with me today.